All right, folks, I need to show you something that honestly has me pretty concerned. And if you're anywhere in the Carolinas, Georgia, or Tennessee, you got to hear this. We're looking at ice accumulations approaching 1 full inch, wind gusts to 40 miles per hour, and here's the kicker. Models are showing thunder ice developing with this system. That's right, lightning during an ice storm, which tells you just how incredibly powerful and frankly dangerous this thing has become. Drop your location in the comments below, and I'll give you the exact forecast for your area as this develops. Now look, when all three major models, the HRRR, Euro, and GFS line up like they are right now, showing the same solution, we pay attention. We've got widespread snow currently moving across Middle Tennessee, but here's the deal. That's changing over to a significant ice storm as this pushes east. Timing is absolutely critical here, because this holds off until late this evening. We're talking 6, 7, maybe 8 o'clock for most areas. When it does arrive, it's starting as freezing rain, and there's a real possibility many of us won't get much sleep tonight because of that later arrival. Because it starts as freezing rain instead of snow, this is going to be a straight-up ice storm that coats everything with a thick glaze. What's particularly troubling is how quickly this ice is forecast to pile up once it gets going. And I mean really pile up fast. Now here's something wild. You might actually experience thunder ice tonight, where you hear loud thunder while freezing rain is coming down at like 29 degrees. This happens when you have enough upper level energy to generate lightning during intense bands, and the sound will be amplified because of the temperature inversion. All right, let me walk you through the timeline so you know exactly when conditions are going to go downhill in your area. By 8 o'clock tonight, freezing rain begins moving into the upstate of South Carolina and western North Carolina, and by 9 and 10, it's really getting going. By 11 tonight, we'll have a glaze forming on roads, trees, and power lines. And man, if we could just stop there, it would be manageable. But as we go deeper into the night, heavier bands of freezing rain move in, and by the time you're waking up tomorrow at 6, 7, or 8, we're in the thick of it. At that point, we'll have accumulated 1/4 to 1/2 inch of ice, and unfortunately, it's only 8 a.m. Sunday, with way more of this system left to come through. The system continues pressing east with widespread snow across the Northeast and Midwest, piling up to 1 foot or more in some spots. But for Kentucky, Tennessee, Georgia, and South Carolina, it's ice, ice, and more ice through the entire day Sunday with no breaks. Now, let me give you city-by-city forecast, because this is where you really need to know what to expect for your location. Charlotte, North Carolina, you're looking at ice accumulations approaching 1 full inch, making this a major ice storm for the Queen City. That I-40 to I-85 corridor is where you're going to see the most persistent freezing rain and absolutely the highest accumulations. Greenville, South Carolina, man, you guys are right in the bullseye for some of the worst ice we've seen in over 20 years, 3/4 to 1 full inch possible. Spartanburg is looking at very similar conditions with major ice accumulations causing widespread and prolonged power outages. Anderson, Clemson, Seneca, you're all locked in for persistent freezing rain with no changeover to rain expected at all. Asheville and Hendersonville, you're going to see ice the entire time with no relief, and this could honestly be one of the worst ice storms in decades. Greenwood, Lawrence, and Abbeville are looking at significant ice that we legitimately haven't experienced in this region in 20 years. For the Triad, including Greensboro and Winston-Salem, you're looking at up to 1 inch of ice with devastating impacts expected. Raleigh and Durham could see around 1/2 inch, which is way more than enough to cause major disruptions and widespread power outages. Atlanta and the northern Georgia mountains are squarely in the target zone for significant ice, especially where elevation increases. Knoxville and areas along I-40 in Tennessee, you're seeing 1 to 4 inches of snow first, then a transition to ice. Memphis, you're looking at ice as the primary threat, with accumulations causing major disruptions to both power and travel. Nashville will see heavy snow initially, but some areas could transition to freezing rain depending on how that warm layer aloft sets up. Now here's what makes this so dangerous. Ice accumulations of just 1/4 inch are enough to snap tree branches and bring down power lines. We're forecasting 1/2 inch to a full inch in the hardest hit areas, which is absolutely catastrophic for power infrastructure. The National Weather Service is showing a 100% chance of a moderate to high impact winter storm. Not 90, not 95, but 100. This means dangerous and straight up impossible driving conditions, widespread closures, and power outages that could last for days. Let me put this in perspective. The last time we saw ice like this was the historic December 2002 ice storm. That storm brought 1/2 inch and left 1.4 million people without power, some for up to 2 weeks in the middle of winter. We're forecasting similar or potentially worse accumulations. So if you remember 2002, yeah, we're talking that kind of impact. What makes this even worse is the wind. We could see gusts of 25 to 35 miles per hour while freezing rain is ongoing. Then, as the Arctic front pushes through Sunday night into Monday morning, those gusts could approach 40 miles per hour in some locations. Any amount of ice on trees combined with those wind gusts is going to cause serious problems and additional widespread power outages. And here's the other major concern: the absolutely brutal Arctic air following right on the heels of this ice storm. By Tuesday morning, we're talking single-digit temperatures across much of the area, with some locations potentially seeing sub-zero readings. The GFS model is showing 7 degrees in Greenville-Spartanburg, -1 in Asheville, 5 degrees in Charlotte for Tuesday morning. So you're going to have widespread ice damage and power outages, followed immediately by some of the coldest temperatures we've seen in years. If you're without power when it's 5 degrees or below zero outside, that becomes a life-threatening situation very quickly. No joke. Now let me talk about what's happening right now in stores across the region, because honestly, this is getting pretty crazy out there. I was at Walmart this morning in Greenville, and guys, the bread aisle was completely wiped out by 10 a.m. Just empty shelves everywhere. Grocery stores and hardware stores are reporting that shelves are being cleared out at an absolutely insane pace right now. Bread, milk, eggs, bottled water, batteries flying off the shelves faster than stores can restock as people prepare for extended power outages. Home Depot locations are already sold out of generators in multiple cities, some as early as 10 this morning, and it's only going to get worse. Publix and other chains are limiting bottled water to 2 cases per customer. Because demand is so high, they're trying to make sure everyone gets some. Some stores are telling customers they won't restock until after the storm passes. So what's on shelves right now is basically all that's available. If you haven't prepared yet, and I'm being dead serious here, you need to get out there right now. Not this evening, not tomorrow, but immediately. Drop a comment below. What's sold out at your local store? I think people need to see how widespread this is. All right, so let me give you the essential prep steps, and I'm going to keep this focused on the most critical items you need right now. Stock up on non-perishable food that doesn't require cooking. Get 3 to 5 days worth of drinking water. That's 1 gallon per person per day minimum. Charge every single device you own right now. Phones, tablets, laptops, battery banks, everything to 100% before this hits. If you have a generator, test it today. Make sure you have fuel stored safely outside, and never, ever run it indoors or near windows. Carbon monoxide poisoning is no joke and can be fatal. So generators, stay outside, away from your home, no exceptions. Gather extra blankets and warm clothing layers, because if you lose heat, you're going to need multiple layers to stay warm in single-digit temps. Bring all your pets inside. Make sure you have food and water for them for 5 days. Check on elderly neighbors who might need help. Know where your nearest warming shelter is located and how to get there if your home becomes uninhabitable without power. Now here's the most important timing advice. You have daylight hours today and early evening to get where you need to be and complete prep. If you need to pick up family or relocate to a safer place, 5 o'clock p.m. is your hard deadline. Maybe an hour past that at most. I really think 8 o'clock and beyond is when freezing rain begins moving in. And once it sets in, roads go from passable to ice rinks in 30 minutes. Do not attempt to travel once freezing rain begins falling, because even a thin glaze makes roads extremely hazardous. It happens that fast. Now let me talk about why we're so confident in this forecast. Because the model agreement has been remarkably consistent. The HRRR, European, and GFS models have all been showing significant ice for the past 36 hours, all arriving at the same solution. When you get that kind of model agreement this close to the event, forecasters get really confident because they're all independently showing the same thing. The only real question is whether some mountain areas might see a brief transition to rain late Sunday afternoon. But even if that happens, it wouldn't change the major impacts from all the ice that falls before that. So the damage is already done. The wedge of cold air damming up against the mountains is something we see all the time here, and models historically underestimate its strength. So if anything, the ice threat could end up being even worse than currently modeled, which is honestly a scary thought. After the storm passes, the dangers don't end. With Arctic air moving in, we're going to see refreezing of any melted ice. Roads that seem passable during the day could refreeze and become extremely dangerous again after sunset, so just stay home. Power crews will work around the clock to restore electricity, but with the extent of damage expected, some areas could be out for a week or more. Now, looking beyond this storm, the pattern isn't done with us yet. The North Atlantic oscillation is still very negative. There are strong signals for another potential winter system around January 30th to 31st, so basically 5 to 7 days after this one. Some model runs are showing roughly 10 to 13 members, indicating another snow possibility, and this cyclical pattern is pretty common. Then looking to early February, we're watching potential for an East Coast system around February 2nd to 3rd that could bring snow. The pattern is locked in cold, and when you're this cold with moisture available, winter weather opportunities keep presenting themselves. Drop your specific location in the comments, and I'll provide you with the most up-to-date info as this situation evolves. I'll be monitoring this continuously and providing updates as new model data comes in every 6 hours with better clarity on impacts. If you found this helpful and want to stay updated, smash that like button and subscribe to the channel for continued coverage. I cannot stress enough how serious this ice storm is going to be for the Carolinas, Georgia, and Tennessee. This is the real deal, folks. This is not a time to take chances or assume things will be fine. This is a time to prepare thoroughly and take this threat very seriously. We're looking at an ice storm many areas haven't experienced in over 2 decades, with impacts that could last for days or even weeks. Please make sure you're prepared. Check on your neighbors and loved ones, and stay safe through this major winter storm event. I'll have another update later today around 6 or 7 p.m., and again tomorrow morning with the very latest as this develops. Bottom line, if you're in the impact zone, finish your prep right now. Shelter in place once freezing rain begins, and stay safe. We'll get through this together, but it requires everyone to take this seriously. So let's do this right, all right?